When I got my first set of drums at age 14, my parents were amazed. I could just sit down and play, no lessons. I just sat down and started grooving. They thought I was a natural. What they didn't know is that I'd been practicing in my head for years. I'd been studying every MTV video with a drummer in it to see which hand did what, how they set up, how the whole thing worked. So by the time the actual drums showed up, I was fully prepared. I wasn't a natural-born drummer. I was just obsessed. But I let them believe it, and honestly, it felt good. Hi, I'm Scott, and welcome to Keep the Flow. Talent is a huge subject for creative people. Doesn't matter what you make, you know there's someone out there with more of it than you. And they've had it easy this whole time while you've been scraping and clawing your way to some degree of proficiency. How can we possibly compete with that? These folks who are just born with the creative gene, where everything they touch turns to gold. Except, I don't think that's actually true. And I want to tell you what believing it cost me. So I put in a lot of time. I sacrificed a lot of normal kid stuff to get good. Every decision I made was in favor of more time on the drums, more experience, more skills, more endurance. That's not talent. That's just what happens when you focus on one thing all day, every day, for years. And then it compounds. That's the part that I think a lot of us miss. The effort compounds. Putting in the time and showing interest created opportunities. I joined a touring rock band. And as I became more interested in jazz, older musicians started booking me on gigs. Once I realized that I wanted to be poor for the rest of my life. Suddenly, I was playing 4 or 5 gigs a week with much more experienced players. By the time I got to college, I'd already racked up a ton of experience in the real world. Maybe I was talented at the very beginning. I'm not trying to argue that talent doesn't exist or something. But none of that would have happened without the time and the effort that I put in. Still, it feels good to have people think that you have some special gift. Why is that? There's a study out of Harvard where researchers had professional musicians listen to recordings of 2 pianists, one a natural talent and one who became great through years of dedicated practice. The musicians consistently rated the natural better. But here's the thing. There was only one pianist. It was the same recording both times. And then to make it even more interesting, before they listened, those same musicians answered questions saying they deeply valued hard work and regular practice. So this naturalness bias goes beyond logic, which makes me wonder whether we're thinking about it as something spiritual, God-given talent, something handed down to the chosen few. The danger of being seen that way is that you might start to believe it. And once you accept that you were simply born with this, that this is just how you are, it's easy to forget how hard you worked to get there, especially if the work was fun. Mine was. I never thought of it as work. But that's the fixed mindset. When you start thinking that you just have this talent, and of course, I'm talking about the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, Fixed versus Growth. And honestly, I think this eventually happened to me. I stopped practicing. Not dramatically, not all at once. It wasn't a conscious choice, but I think I quietly decided my natural ability had taken me this far, and now my job was to accept that level and lean into it. Which is a very comfortable story to tell yourself. It asks nothing of you. I lost almost 10 years that way. It's hard to pin down exactly when it started, but it was definitely while I was living in New York. I was playing all the time, not making much money, but still, around 5 nights a week, I was playing in random bars and restaurants. It kind of felt like I was able to coast. I had a good musical sense and decent technique, not great, but for 80% of the gigs I was doing, it was more than enough. For the other 20%, it felt like I was being challenged. but that it was just a matter of becoming more comfortable with more adventurous material. The problem was that I didn't have time to get comfortable. This was New York City. If I couldn't play the music at the level that was expected, there were 100 other drummers who could. After I moved to Iceland, I started doing more teaching, and that's really when all this came into focus for me. I found myself sorting students. Who's talented, who's doing the work, who's progressing, who isn't. And then I thought, which kind of student am I? I didn't love the answer. And before I forget, could you do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button and subscribe? It should be right down there somewhere. Over there. Thanks. Now the flip side, talent is real. Some people genuinely have an easier time learning certain things. Their brains are pre-wired for it. But talent by itself doesn't go anywhere. It's like finding a $100 bill on the street. It's nice, but what are you going to do with it? Same with luck. Talent is a kind of luck, but luck keeps showing up. The right person at the right time, inspiration in a place you weren't looking. Same with environment. Neither of my parents were musicians, but both of them were constantly listening to music. My dad was into jazz, so I was soaking in it before I knew what it was. And I was lucky in another way I didn't really appreciate at the time. There was almost no competition where I grew up in Virginia. Not one other kid in my area was interested in jazz drumming. You'd have to drive an hour and a half to Richmond to find one. So, of course, I got a lot of gigs thrown my way. Talent, luck, environment. Notice what all three have in common. None of them are yours. You didn't choose any of it. It was handed to you. Which leaves two things that actually are yours. One is the work, and everybody talks about the work. Ericsson, Gladwell, the 10,000 hours. Fine. But you can put in all the hours in the world and still end up nowhere because hours don't tell you where to aim. That's the thing almost nobody talks about. Taste is the thing that tells you where to aim. Yes, it's partly handed to you too. It comes out of the environment you came up in, and we only have partial agency over it. We like what we like. But taste does something none of the rest of it does. Taste shows you potential. It's the kind of thing that makes you dissatisfied with what you just made. It's the gap between what you can currently do and what you can already imagine. And that gap is not a problem. That gap is the engine. It's the reason you get back to work. Talent is a starting point. Luck is like weather. The work is the terrain. And there's just no getting around that. Taste is the only one of them that's pointing anywhere, showing you where to go. When I made my first album, I had a hard time listening to it. I knew that I was not playing on the same level as the other musicians I was lucky enough to have with me. At first it made me feel stuck, but then I gave in and I started to really listen to it. There were parts that I liked and a lot that could have been better or different. But why? It wasn't just about technical ability, it was also about the choices I made. But having that album gave me a clear picture of where I was at that time, which in turn pointed me in the direction I wanted to go. When you start asking yourself why you like this and don't like that, or would it have been better if I had done this differently, that's the evolution of taste. That's figuring out which way to go. So if you've ever caught yourself thinking someone else just has it easier, maybe they do. But that was never the part that mattered. Put in the time, develop your taste. Those are the two things nobody handed you and the two things nobody can take away. Thanks so much for hanging out. I'll catch you in the next episode. Until then, keep the flow. I feel the need to wink. No.